everybody. It's Tiffany, Executive Director and Founder of Crafting Change, here on this lovely Sunday evening. And tonight we are going to talk about ear-warming headbands. And I've got one on that Kathy sent me, and I love it a whole lot. Isn't it cute? Thanks, Kathy. I love it. It's super soft, and she sent me a whole bunch. So, oh, look. So it looks good on your guys. So I'm just going to stop talking and turn it over to Kathy. So let me get you all blown up.
Yep. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon or evening, depending on where you're at. And if you know what time it is, that's especially important with the time change last night. So we're doing good. We're all here at the same time, same place. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy weekend. And thank you for all that you do for Crafting Change. Now, we all know that we got some pretty awesome crochet and knit patterns for winter wear. And I hope you know that we also have sewing patterns now for winter wear. We've got lots of partner charities that are asking for their winter wear right now. So tonight, I'm going to show you how to sew these easy fleece headbands. These guys are so simple. They're so easy to do, and they don't take a lot of fabric. There's 3 different patterns that we've come up with. The first one is a fleece headband with a front knot. It's a wider headband that's just got the little front knot on it. The second one is what Mr. Cool here is wearing. It's just a regular little, we call it like an ear fleece headband because it comes down around your ears. And that's just a plain down around the ear. And this third one is just so cool. It's a takeoff from Mr. Cool's pattern, but it's got contrast binding around the outside. And don't worry if you don't catch the steps as I sew them tonight, because we've got some little quick class videos you can refer to. And Tiffany's going to drop those links in the chat for you, and I'll also make them available online. Plus, if you go to the partner charity website on craftingchange.org, there'll be links to them there for the organizations that are asking for them. So the original patterns, kind of interesting little backstory. We'll start with the little front nut headband. This is the original one that I sent to Tiffany, and how the pattern was written. It has a seam in the back where you join it. Okay, simple enough. But she challenged me to find a way to make these more wearable friendly, because this knot back here where the open seam was can be irritating to some wearers. So, okay, I took the challenge on, and I think I did find a 2.0 way to make these headbands 2.0. And so I'm going to show you how I've revised the pattern so there's no seam in the back to make it a lot more wearer friendly. So we're going to make 2 tonight. We're going to make this one with the knot, and that's what we're going to start with. And then the second one is going to be the one with the contrast. And if you want just to make Mr. Cool's here, that'll be the video that is just called Fleece Headband with Ear Flaps. Okay. Now the 4th video I want to mention that we've got is tips and tricks for working with fleece. And if you've been to any of our other classes, you'll have a lot of that same information repeated there, so you can remember. Most of it is on picking out your material, finding the right kind of material, and then some tricks that we can use to make sewing fleece easier, because fleece by nature is fluffy. So let's get started a little bit here. Again, one of the keys to your success is going to be picking out a nice piece of fleece to start with. Now, Joann's is where I usually shop because that's all I have. I know a lot of you shop there, but what you're going to be looking for is a little bit better quality of fleece. Joann's has 3 levels. They have a blizzard, they have an anti-pill, and they have a luxe. And we've tested all 3 lines of fleece, and unfortunately the blizzard does not perform well or hold up. So what I'd recommend is you look for the anti-pill on Joann's fabrics. It has it printed right on the selvage. Plus you can also see at the end of the bolt if it says anti-pill. And again, your time and your effort and your money is just so appreciated of all of that love and work that you put into these, that if you just get just a little bit better quality, you're going to be so much happier with how they turn out. And the charity that receives them knows that they've just got just a wonderful thing that you've given. So I'm off my soapbox on the fleece now. Okay, now this first headband with the knot, there isn't a paper pattern for this because this is just sewn using dimensions and measurements. There's no patterns. So for this, I'm going to demonstrate tonight, I'm going to be using some Luxe fleece. And Luxe fleece is a little bit denser fleece, but it's so, I mean, Luxe is short for luxurious, and that's exactly what this is. This stuff is just beautiful. It's so nice and soft. So what you'll need to make this headband is you'll need 2 pieces, 5 inches wide. And for an average adult, it's 23 inches long. Now, if you look at the little mini video, there'll be one of the captions in there that'll tell you like 24 inches long is an extra large adult, 23 is an average adult, 22 is a teenager or a small adult, and 21 is a youth. And if you're making one for yourself or for somebody, you can always just measure your circumference of your head and just add a 1/2 inch, and then that will be fine if you're making it custom. But again, there are just so many that are asking for these. There's going to be a head that fits whatever you send. So don't worry too much about having an exact measurement as long as you stay within the 21 to 24 inches long. The other thing that you'll need obviously is your sewing machine, matching thread, your usual utensils, clips or pins, scissors, a marking pen, sewing gauge, tape measure, and something to turn with like a bodkin or a safety pin. Now remember, when you cut this out, you want the fleece to go crosswise against your fabric because you want the stretch to go around your head, okay? Because the lengthwise of the fleece, there's no give. And we want these to give, to have some stretch to go around the head. The other reminder that I have is, now I know you all remember from our other class how to tell what's the right and what's the wrong side. If you happen to have a piece of fleece that's really close, if you have a cut edge, just give it a small tug. If you gently tug, and it'll curl to the wrong side. So that's how you'll know what the right and the wrong side of the fleece is. So the first step is we're going to prep the tube. And the tube that goes around the front is just these 2 pieces that are 2 inches by 5 inches. And with the right sides together, you're going to clip or pin, because remember this stuff's a little shifty, clip or pin the sides, and then you're sewing down each of the long sides about 1/4 inch. And when you're done with that, come back and grade your seam allowances. And what grading a seam allowance is just coming in and cutting one of the extra seam allowances about in half. You're eliminating some of this bulk. So when you turn it to top stitch it or work with it, you've got less bulk to work with. Okay, so when you get this all turned out, right sides out, then you go ahead and top stitch along each side, a width away from the width of your presser foot, or 1/4 inch, or whatever's comfortable to you. There's no hard and fast rules because you're the one creating it. If you want to make it narrow or wide, hey, go for it. Okay, so this knot band is ready. I'm going to set this aside while we prep the headband. Now the headband, we are going to take the right sides. You can see that my right side is darker. Take the right sides, put the right sides together, and all you're going to be doing is pinning or clipping this all the way down, because we got some shifty stuff going on here. And then after you've got it pinned or clipped, you're just going to be sewing the 2 long sides with using about a 3/8, maybe a 1/2 inch seam allowance down the 2 sides. And then what you want to do is grade the seams like we did before, and then turn it inside out. Now, here's a tip for sewing on fleece because of the thickness of it. There's a couple things you can do to help you along. And this is in the video for tips and tricks for fleece. When I start sewing, I put my presser foot in about one length away from the edge, so I'm not just sewing on air trying to get up the hump. And then I'll go forward and then back a little bit and then forward again. You can also use what we call a hump jumper or a thingamajig, whatever they call this. This one came with my machine, but it's got a thick side to it and it's got a thin side to it. And it's got this groove here where you can stitch in it. And what you'll be doing is you'll put that right at the edge of your fabric. So it'll lift up your presser foot to be the same height as what your fleece is. And these work real swell. If you don't have one of those, make one. This is about 5 or 6 layers of denim. And all I've done is just stitch through them just to make it thick. And what I would do with this is when I'm starting to seam, I would just put this behind on the seam. So my presser foot is on that and that'll raise it up to the height. So if, hey, everybody's got some scraps, go ahead and make one if you don't want to buy a Gina-majig. And my other little buddy, my poor little purple thing. This purple thing is chewed up more than the cat toy. But purple thing is real good for when you're sewing and you want to kind of help your fabric along. You can kind of push it a little bit. Remember that this is cut along the stretch of the fabric, so don't be too excited about stretching too hard, but this purple thing will help guide your material underneath the foot. Okay. Now the next thing that we want to do is I want to show you, I know I'm beating a dead horse here on grading the seams, but all you need to do is when you've got the 2 layers here, just lay your scissors flat and come up underneath the first layer and just trim it on down. And if you keep your scissors parallel to the fabric, it'll work no problem. Okay, so once you've got your band with the right side sewn together on both of the long sides, you're going to leave the ends open. Then you're going to turn that band. You're going to turn the band and then top stitches. Now remember, obviously this is stretch. So when I top stitch this, I change my machine settings to a zigzag with a little bit longer length of zigzag and loosen the tension. And it seems to work real well. Now, I got something. First time I went to do this, I thought, well, I don't need to test my stitches. I've been sewing forever. I know what I'm doing. So I put the headband underneath there and I just started going like crazy. And you know what happened? I got a wrinkly old mess when I was done. You see how that waves at the top? That'll teach me. That's what happens when you're trying to feed it through the machine in a hurry. You get something that's not wearable. And the only thing that this is good for is to show you guys what I mean when I say take some scraps of your fleece and experiment with your machine so you know what settings are good for you and your project, and then write them down. It'll save you a lot of time and a lot of frustration. Okay, now that we've got our top stitching done, what we're going to do with this headband is we're going to join it here in the center front and then zigzag that shut. Okay, so I need to make these edges as clean and as clear as possible. These were the edges that we did not turn under to stitch. But what I've done is I've come back and just kind of stitched them closed. And this one's kind of ratty, so I'm going to come over to the cutting mat and I'm just going to clean that up a little bit. And if you have just a little bitty straight edge or a little bitty ruler, whatever you use with the rotary cutter, that works real swell, because all you want to do is just get a nice straight edge on that. Okay, so I cut off a little bit of extra here, so I've got a nice flat edge. Now here's where the magic happens, huh? Now what we do is we take these two and we're going to butt these up together, and I'm going to put them down here and butt them up together. And okay, I can use pins, I can use clips, but what I found is I'm just going to tape a couple across here just to keep them butted together. You don't want to overlap them. You want them to just meet. And trust me, this works. I know it looks weird, but this works. So I've got that butt joint right here with tape across it. And I'm going to go to my machine now. And at your sewing machine, pick out the zigzag stitch, come back and make that zigzag stitch as wide as what you can get. And then don't forget, on fleece, I have to lower my tension. And then the width is not real important here. But what I do want to show you is most of your presser feet are going to have a center mark. It's going to have a little red dot or something right here in the middle. And what you want to do is you want to line up that center mark right on this cut edge. And so when you're zigzagging, you're going to zig and then zag, one on either side of that cut edge to pull these together, but you don't want to overlap them and make extra bulk. So I'm going to do that here on my machine. I know you can't see that. And not just once, but you're going to want to go over this a couple times just to make sure that you've got a nice solid join. And it really does work. So probably the hardest part of this whole thing is just getting this tape off, but that'll pull through those zigzag stitches. And it won't leave any mark on here because we're not going to leave that tape on for any extended period of time. And plus we've got our band stitched together and we've eliminated that back seam. So we did find a way to do it. Okay. Easier said than done, right? So then what I'm going to do is just give this a good tug, and that is firm on there. As you can see that I've zigzagged those two together. And here's my seam right here. Okay. So now this is going to become your center front. I'm just going to trim those away. That's going to become your center front, and the center back is nice and smooth. Now the next thing before we go to the last step, you want to go ahead and set your machine up for a zigzag. Well, no, let's not use a zigzag. I want you to put your zipper foot. That's what I meant. I knew I started with a Z. What's wrong with me tonight? I want you to put your zipper foot on, or if you don't have a zipper foot, then set your machine up for a straight stitch and move your left position, move your needle to all the way to the left position and get that set up before you start. And so I've got mine with my needle in the left position as far as I can go. And I've taken my tension down to about 3.8 or a 4. And then I just made my stitches about a 3 to 3.5 in length. Because this is going to take both hands, but I know you can do it. So what we've got to do now is put our knot around the front of the headband. So just take this and just kind of crunch it up along this seam that we just did, like an accordion. Just kind of pinch it up and hold it with your left hand. And with your right hand, you're going to take the little tab that you made, and with the right side, you're going to put the right side over the front. Going to put the right side towards the band. And then come around to the back and pull this seam allowance. And so what we're going to do is we're going to be stitching this band together back here. Now, I don't want you to get real gung-ho and go as tight as you can against that, because it's going to be hard to turn that back side out. So just give yourself a little bit of allowance and either use pins or clips, and then put this underneath your zipper foot or into your machine that you've moved your needle to the left, and you're going to stitch about right here, stitching these two seamed pieces together. So I'm going to do that. And this is definitely something that you want to go slow with, but I know that you can do this. And again, what I want to do is I want to go back and forth a couple of times on that, so I don't accidentally break those stitches as I'm turning that knot bow to the right side. Oh, I think about 4 should do it. 4 sounds like a good number tonight. So I'm going to trim off the threads. And this is why we made this long. We made this knot bow long so you would have enough room to grab this and be able to sew. So I don't really need it that long as being finished. So I'm just going to trim a little bit of this off. And now the hardest part of this whole thing, believe me, is turning this knot band to the right side. And that's why I didn't want you to push that all the way up to the headband. So turn your knot band to the right side, then fiddle with it a little bit. Make sure you know what you want for a front, what you want for a back, and then center this knot band over that seam. Okay, now I'm going to come to the back and I'm going to put my fingers in here and just open up that seam I just made, open it up flat. Guess what, guys, you're done. And that's how you make one without any back seam. Easy, easy, easy. I know you got this. Okay. And that is your headband with the knot bow. And that's number 1 on the video list. Okay. Oh, I wish you could feel this luxe. I love it. So now that we've got that figured out, let's go on to our second one. Our second one is the headband with contrast binding. And again, fabric is your fleece, anti-pill or better. Refer to previous conversations about that. And what you're going to need is, this is what we're going to be making. Isn't that cool? I can just think of so many different combinations to make that. And believe me, when you put this on and wear this, this just forms right to your ear. It's like the best fitting little thing that I've had. I mean, this is really a neat little pattern. Okay. So what you want to do is, this one does use a pattern so you can get the shape of the ear. And this one, Tiffany's going to put in the chat the link for the basic pattern piece, and it's at hellosewing.com, and it's hellosewing.com/fleece-ear-warmer-headband. And this will be for an adult size headband. It'll come in 2 pieces. So you'll seam it together and match your little diamond, and you put A to B, tape it together. And notice on one edge here is the put me on a fold indicator. Okay. So for this one, we don't need a lot of material at all on this one. This one, you're only going to need about 4.5 inches of material. So out of the width of the headband, you can easily get one. You can get a bunch of them out of a yard because you can kind of stagger them. If you want to, you can use a couple different colors. Not a need to. I'm going to take 2 different colors tonight, so it's easier for you to look at and you can see the contrast. But you will need 2 pieces, an inside and an outside, and then you'll need to cut a 2-inch wide strip by the width of the fabric of your contrast. And when I buy my fleece, I like to get a pattern that's got a lot of different colors in it, and then pull out solids and buy the solids that go with it. So when I'm making hats or gloves or scarves or headbands, they all can kind of mix and match. So again, remember to lay this out across the width. So you've got the stretch going around your head, and cut out 1 inside, 1 outside, and a 2-inch by the width of the material. So 2-inch by 60 for contrast. And again, the pattern is at hellosewing.com. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do, which is going to be real helpful, is I need to mark which is the right, which is the wrong side of these materials, because how we put this together is just a little bit counterintuitive, and I don't want you to get mixed up. So I want to mark the wrong side of the fleece. Again, I pull it and I see it curls this way. So on each edge of each piece, I'm marking the wrong side. And this is a not water soluble, I think it just brushes off. This is a Madame So chalk marker that's got a little wheel on the bottom of it. I really like that. But if you have any kind of a water soluble marker, that'll work too. Whatever you've got's good. Just need to identify what's the wrong side. So lay your headbands out, and what we're going to be doing is this time we're going to stack the wrong sides together. So lay the wrong sides together, and definitely you're going to want to clip these together because these are going to get sewn together with the wrong sides together. So we want to make sure that doesn't shift on us. So let's get our pins and clips going here. And now there's one, here comes the trick to making this without the exposed seam, okay? On the end of the fleece, use your sewing gauge or tape measure and measure in 2 inches from each end. And put a pin in at the 2-inch mark. And that's going to be your starting and stopping point. You're not going to sew that together beyond there. So you want 2 inches that we're not going to sew at this end, come down at the other end, do the same thing, come in. I'm not picking up pins tonight real well. Okay, and once we've got this all clipped together, remember we've got our right sides here, right sides here, we got wrong sides together. And what you're going to do is stitch along this bottom curved edge and this top edge, but not past where you pinned. You're going to leave the 2 inches open at the ends. And for your machine, remember to use a ballpoint size needle, 14 or 16 when sewing on fleece, and adjust your machine settings according to what you've tested your fabric with. Now, my machine, I've gotten into the zigzag stitch, but with the zigzag, I make sure that I narrow my width down to about a 2.0, so it's not a real wide zigzag, and I've lengthened it out a little bit and taken it up to a length of about 5, and then lowered my tension 3.8 or a 4. Okay. Now, using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, you're going to be sewing on both sides. Whoops. a 1/4 inch away from the bottom and from the top. And then of course, go back, trim away some of your bulk is why you can see the pink. Now it's important that you have this seam and this top seam be consistent. You don't want this to be up and down and some's not as wide as the other. You want these to be consistent because when you put the binding on, that's what we're going to use to gauge where the binding should be sewn. Okay, so I've got right sides showing, got it sewn together, check, yep. I've got it graded, yep. Now I'm going to pull out my pins, and what we're going to be doing is sewing the back seam. But this is the trick, and it's really not hard. Not going to be that difficult. You guys can get this. Remember, I've got right sides together on the outside. I mean, the right side showing here. So what you're going to do is you're going to take 2 pieces, the 2 tails of the blue, and put their right sides together, and you're going to stitch that back seam using about a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay. Yep. Stitch my seam, trim my threads. So we've got that back sewn together. And now we got to be clever and figure out how to do the same thing for this pink. And for this, remember our right sides are showing. So come here and take your fingers and kind of roll those right sides together and come in and hold that to where you're going to want to sew your seam at. Hold that and then just pull that to the outside to give you room to stitch it. That's why we left that 2 inches open. Now let me do that one more time. Okay, remember when we sewed this, we had right side showing. So this is the right side of the blue, and we already stitched our center back seam. And now we've got the right side of the pink that we need to stitch the center back seam. So I'm going to have it come together and match up the right sides together here. Going to put my fingers on the inside to hold that together. And then we're just going to take it and just going to pull it out. And then pin this together so we can stitch that together. That's all the more difficult it is. And if you've left a 2 inch opening on all of the ends, you won't have any trouble pulling this out so you can sew this seam. Okay. All right, so let's get this one sewn up. You just got to be a little bit more careful with it, but it'll sew. All right, pull my pins out. And there you go. We've got that seams, we've got this seams. Now these seem a little bit thick to me, so I'm going to come back and pull them out and just trim them down just a little bit. And grade one of those allowances just to get a little bit more of that excess fleece off of there. I just think it makes a nicer finished product when there's not as much bulk. And finger press, put your thumbs in there, whatever you need to do. Put your thumbs or your fingers in there, finger press that down, then come over, finger press that pink down. And now we've got a nice flat seam is what we're looking for. Nothing exposed, nothing real thick, just a nice flat seam. Okay. And now with this, I want to finish stitching them together. So I'm just going to come back and just stitch the top and the bottom together, just so it'll hold It'll hold for when we put the binding on. Using my purple thing, help me along here. All right. And then finish the other side up. So where we're at is we've got both of these seams done in the back. We've got the outside of this all stitched together with the right side showing. And yeah, I'll agree. This looks pretty ratty right now. But it'll get much, much better after we put the binding on. So let's go get our binding. Now, my binding was cut from the width of the fabric from selvage to selvage, and I don't like using the selvages. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut that selvage off. And I'm going to start working from the back. Now this is where our back seam is, and it's nice and flat because we pushed it with our thumbs, but I don't want to have any other seams on top of this. So I'm going to take the contrast, and the right side of this contrast is going to go against the right side of the fleece. And I'm going to start about 1 inch off of that back seam because I don't want all of those seams to end up all in the same place. So I'm going to pin that here as an indicator of where my starting stitching is going to be. And I'm going to pin this all the way around, pin that all the way around. And then when you get back to the beginning, you fold this out of your way, hold it with your thumb, bring this up, and then just put another pin in there where your stopping point is going to be for that stitching. And then go ahead and stitch all the way around here. And when you come to this point, you're going to stop right at this pin. You're not going to try to go over it. You're just going to come up and stop. And you can feel with your fingers where that other lump is, and you don't want to run into it. You just want to go right up to meet it. So let's see how that turned out. There we go. I've stitched all the way around, and I've come up and I've just stopped short of the other. So I'm not running into it or running over it. And now my excess, I'm just going to cut that off. That'll go in the excess pile. And if it's easier for you to lay down your headband and just kind of smooth those two joints, those two flappies of fabric together, and you can feel where your seam needs to be sewn. So I just put a little holding pin in there. Then I go to the machine and I stitch this with a straight stitch, being careful not to catch any of your headband underneath it. So all you're doing is just sewing up this back binding seam, and you're not sewing through the headband, you're just sewing that back seam. And there I've got that sewn together, and it's not catching anything on the headband. And now I'm just going to trim off my excess and clip those seams. That makes me nuts too. Okay. Now you're ready to turn this fleece all the way up, pull it up, make my little seam there, open up with my fingers, I'll press it flat. And what you're going to do is you're going to push this seam up and then roll the contrast over it. Okay. And you're just going to, you don't have to tuck it in and then turn it, because fleece doesn't ravel. So we don't have to do a turn and then a turn. I guess you could if you wanted to be fancy, but that would be hard to sew through, and you could hand sew it, but why? Okay. So we've got our seam, we've got it pulled up to the top. We're just going to roll the binding over and then just start pinning that binding down to the headband. And now you can see why we needed to make that first seam here uniform, because that's what makes that binding look nice. Okay, so with your back fingers, push that seam up and then pull that over and then pin. And you keep going all the way around your band, and periodically just take a second to check, does that look even or does it look lumpy somewhere? But you want to pull it around and smooth it out, and your fingers will be able to feel it. So trust your senses here, because that's what they're there for, huh? So after you've rolled that over and just pinned it down, what you're going to do is you're going to go back and do what we call a stitch in the ditch. You're going to be stitching in the ditch right here where these intersect between the band and the binding. You're going to stitch right in here. And you'll do that all the way around. And then when you get done, it's going to look something like this, where you've got that material flapped over and you stitched in the ditch, and then you have your excess. And all you do then is take your scissors and then lay them flat on here and then just trim away this excess. And just be careful that you don't cut into that stitching line that you did, but this will take away your excess binding material. And one more word of caution is when you're sewing this around, feel with your fingers that you don't have this back binding bunched up, because once you stitch in the ditch, it's really hard to unpick that or rip it out. Don't ask me how I know that, okay? So this bottom of the band now is done, and you can see it's just got this really cute edging going all the way around it. I've stitched in the ditch, which you really can't see at all from the outside, even though I've used white fabric, white thread on it, so you can't see it. And then gone to the back and then just trimmed it down. And guess what? You are done. That's all it takes to make the headband. You've got a nice smooth back that's hopefully not irritating the wearer. You've got the seams staggered on this one. Here's my center seam of the headband, and here's the seam here, and here's a seam here. It's important that you don't have all of these seams in one lump and just stagger them. And that's all the more that you've got to do. Isn't that cute? Now I'm done. What questions do you guys have?
That's amazing. I love it. And I love how you figured out how to hide the seams. That was a special request from me, and I love how you were able to do that. I love that.
It only took 2 or 3 tries, but I figured it out.
Well, and once you did it, it seems like it's really easy to sew. I thought it was going to be some complicated, difficult process, but
no,
it's
on this one, it's just so easy because that seam is hidden underneath the band, but yet the band is nice and finished, and it's on the front of the head. So you've only got one seam to contend with, and the back is just so nice and smooth. So this one's a real winner. That is real winner. And also with this just fits so well. This just comes down around the ears and it just fits so well. And it looks so cute with that contrast. And this one is made with the purple on both sides. And you can just do anything that you want to with these. Like the ones here I'm doing here, this is pink, this is purple, this is the binding. I really don't think that they'd want to wear this inside out though, but they might, because there's that cut edge, but it just kind of makes it cute and gives it a little flavor. Really so lots of possibility, guys, and we need a lot We need a lot of these.
Yeah, yeah. I dropped in the chat. We have Mental Health Resource Center and University of California Riverside are collecting those. We also are going to do a very temporary short-term collection of those here at headquarters for us to deliver some down to Skid Row for our December collection because they are wanting some warm winter items. We're not putting that up on their website. We're just going to make that announcement. We're going to put something on the Facebook page that for that December collection of items down there on Skid Row. They would like to have some winter items go down there. And since these are so fast and easy to whip up, if you're sending packages to Correct and Change headquarters and you have some winter items to throw in there, feel free to send winter items to headquarters and we'll distribute our next trip down to Skid Row in December. It is pretty cool down there in California in the winter months. So some things like ear warmers are a great thing to distribute. So they don't take a whole lot of fleece, Kathy.
No, they don't. This one that I did not demonstrate how to make is the fleece headband I call it with the ear flaps because it's shaped. And this one would be acceptable because you can whip up a lot of these. Even if you do make that seam in the back, these would go together fast. But the only thing I wasn't real fond of these once I've done this is that it's not real wide. And so I think it's very appropriate for maybe a teen size or a small adult. But for a man, I'm not sure if that's wide enough. But this is the ear warmer pattern, the same pattern, but it's constructed differently. And I show you how to do it in the video. So if you are ambitious and just want to do the regular little headband, you can go ahead and take this pattern and just maybe make it a 1/2 inch wider. It'd be real easy to do. Just cut it out maybe a 1/2 inch taller, just so it's a little bit wider. That wouldn't be hardly anything to do if you didn't want to mess with putting the contrast banding on, because these two are cut from the same pattern. Just this has the banding and this doesn't have the band.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're really fun. Really fun. Any questions from the room?
This is Janet. I have a couple questions.
Go for it.
And I might have missed it earlier. Your little trick for finding the front of the fleece versus the back of the fleece, you did that stretch and it curved. Which way does it curve?
It rolls to the wrong side.
Rolls to the wrong side. Rolls to the wrong. Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to double check.
Yep, rolls to the wrong.
Okay, and then what was my second question? Oh shoot, I think I forgot it. Oh, I remember now. You mentioned adjusting some of your things on your sewing machine for the fleece.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure I can do that with my 1950s Singer. But
well, what you can,
some of those things you mentioned, I don't even know where they are on this machine.
Okay,
So,
if you've got an older machine like that, then what I would do in order to have a little bit of give in my stitch, can you do a zigzag?
yes.
Okay, I would set it to a zigzag, but I wouldn't do a real wide zigzag. I'd make
Okay.
it a narrow zigzag and lengthen out my stitch.
Okay, I can
And
do that.
it'd be real imperative for you that when you're sewing a seam, you have to resist the urge to pull it to help the fabric through, because that's what makes the wave. And
Oh,
you don't
okay.
want the wave on your headband. So resist the urge to pull,
Don't
because
fall.
we've got these cut out going across the stretch. So they stretch when we wear them, which is fine. But remember, where's my jiggy one? Here he is. No? Well, I can't find him right now. But the one that I did, oh yeah, I did. This is the one that I pulled it as I was sewing it through the machine. It just comes out real wavy on top. See how that waves?
Mhm.
Because you've distorted the fabric. So for you with your older machine, you can still do it. Just use a little wider, longer, thinner,
Zigzag.
a thinner zigzag. Yeah.
Okay.
And don't pull,
Don't
If
pull.
anything, you want to maybe push the fabric, get yourself a trusty little pusher. This is the purple thing. And yeah, my
Wow.
point is all chewed up. And it's not because I let the cat get to it, but it's
That's-
chewed up because I've caught it underneath.
Caught it on the needle. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Push it along.
so you should be able to do it fine.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I have more confidence now.
You can do it.
Kathy-
You got this.
Kathy, the Hello Sewing pattern requires us to subscribe to something. Can you tell us how that works?
Oh, if I can remember how it is.
Can we subscribe to get the pattern, then we can immediately unsubscribe from it, correct?
Yes. You
It's
subscribe.
free.
to
It's
get
a
the
free
pen.
download, and
It's a free download and it goes right to your email. And then so it'll open up from your email.
then we can immediately unsubscribe so we don't get spammed to death.
Right. Well, I kept subscribed to her and she's not real bad on that one.
Okay.
Maybe about 3 or 4 a week, she'll just send a little email that says, well, look at this pattern or look at that pattern. And it's not real bad, but yes, you can immediately unsubscribe.
Yeah. So, Kathy Wargo.
Yeah, two things on the waviness part. If you have a walking foot, that will help. Or if you have a machine that you can adjust the foot pressure, which usually is a little knob on the old black and white black singers. There's a little knob on the very top of the machine that you can loosen, and it adjusts the pressure of the pressure foot on your fabric. Some of the newer
Yeah.
machines, you can, there's a little dial on the front
That's
face
what that
of
thing
the,
is. I had no idea what that thing was. Okay.
and
There you
that will
go.
help a lot, rather than messing with your tension so much.
Oh yeah, I don't want to touch the tension.
It's yeah, the
Unbelievable.
tension,
Wow.
yeah, if you have an electronic machine, it's easy because you just beep and boop and there it is.
Oh,
But
dear
Kathy
Lord.
Wargo
No.
got a very good point. Thank you. I forgot to mention that a walking foot is really helpful. And on your old machines, it's the little silver doojobby up on top. Thank you,
And-
Kathy.
Thanks.
You got,
And
you're my
didn't you guys
wingman.
recommend a walking foot for the rag quilts? Didn't
Yeah.
The rag quilts would use a walking
Anywhere
whatever
that you have a couple of layers of material, a walking foot would be useful.
Okay. All right.
Especially if you've got like a top and a bottom sandwiched with a batting in it. A walking foot really help to just move that at the same pace. Otherwise, you've got your top shifting and not coming out even at the end of the seam.
Thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions? Awesome. Well, thank you, Kathy, for another amazing
Thank
class.
you.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it so much. I hate to have to take it off and put it back on my wall of amazing things to show off to our partners. It's got a tag on here. You can't see it. The tag's tucked in here to tell me what it is, and so I show it off to our partner charities. But I have it on just for class. So I'd love to be able to wear it all around town because it's perfect. So thank you very much for the amazing class on the fleece ear warmers. We do need lots of these for several of our partner charities. Very popular, easy, fun thing to make. So
Yeah.
if anyone sewing them off
Yeah.
for this, and look for whatever fleece goes on sale. So
Yeah.
a good deal. And so we got all of the videos uploaded to the YouTube channel. I did get notified. I do have one wrong link. I added them in mass to the website. So one of the links is wrong on the website. I'm going to go fix. I put the wrong link into the right picture. And so I'm going to go get that link fixed while we're chatting the rest of the last 45 minutes of class. I'll go fix that. I'll go fix that link and get that taken care of. So thank you, Brenda, for pointing that out. So I will go. It made it all loopy. Like, wait, this link took me back to this place. So I'll go get that link fixed. So yeah. So thank you. Thanks so much, Kathy. I love it. We look adorable. We look adorable in our head.